continue with our fifth section. I tend to be very rebellious at times. That's what it says in the comments section on my first grade report card. Phoebe tends to be very rebellious at times. I hate my first grade teacher, by the way. She tended to be an old bat at times. Still, I have to admit, I can get a little disobedient with authority figures now and then. Okay, I can get a lot disobedient, but the way I treated my mother after our little scene in the kitchen was an all-time low for me. I started saying Mick's name at every opportunity, not to her face, but if she was in hearing distance. I'd find a way to mention him to everyone I could, real loud, so she couldn't miss it. Like the next morning when the delivery boy from the florist knocked on the door with our millionth sympathy bouquet, I started blurting out all the stuff about Mick's favorite flower. You probably think it's weird for a boy to have a favorite flower, I said. But my brother totally loves this one kind called Venus's flytrap. Ever heard of it? It eats flies. Eats them alive, Mick sort of had this thing about flies, an obsession, you might call it. The boy stared out of our doorway. I followed him out to the porch. They vomit on your bread, you know. The kid ended up running back to his truck. It was pretty funny, actually, in a gruesome sort of way. That afternoon, I told our mail carrier about the time Mick put a rubber snake in the mailbox. You know, you should have been there, I told her. The guy screamed the S word and threw out mail all over the sidewalk. Our mail carrier didn't even crack a smile. Instead, she informed me that putting a snake in the mailbox was a federal offense, and she wrote my name down. You know, you people take your job way too seriously, I said. When I shut the door, my mother was standing there looking at me. There were tears streaming down her face. Why are you doing this? Her voice sounded like a little kid's. Doing what? What am I doing? I tried to be cool as anything, but inside I was filling up with this awful kind of shame I never felt before. I left her standing there and went straight to my room. Then I curled up on my bed and my stomach tied itself up in a million knots as I thought about what I had done, there was no getting around it. I had flat out spent my entire day taunting my mother with her dead son's name. I left her standing there. I'm going to try again. What's next, Phoebe? Want to try imitating his voice or running into her bedroom dressed in his clothes? Boy, that'd really get her, wouldn't it? I stared hard at the ceiling. God, how I hated this. All of it. Myself, my life, my new family of 3. Mick was dead. And in just a few days, we had all turned into people I didn't even know. My mother was a zombie. My father, some slob in slipper socks. And I was a jolly little monster who got my kicks by tormenting Mom with my brother's name. I clenched my fist. Damn you, Mick, damn you, for doing this to us, I whispered. And then the tears started streaming down my face, too. I was still crying when I finally reached for the phone and called Zoe. Oh, Zoe, what's happening to me? I swear to God, I just don't know what's happening. On the other end of the line, you could practically hear Zoe rolling up her sleeves to get right to work. We started talking, then really talking for the first time since Mick had died. Talking about my parents and the accident and how horribly confused I felt inside. And I missed Mick, of course. The conversation always came back to Mick. And worrying about him. Mostly Zoe just listened. Even when I started saying the same stuff over and over again, she acted like she was hearing it for the first time. I could always talk to her after that, too, always, no matter what I was feeling. The internment of Mick's ashes was at 4:30 that same afternoon. We were home by 5. At midnight, I got out of bed and dialed Zoe's number again. I knew it would wake up her parents, but I didn't much care. After you've been to your brother's internment, waking people in the middle of the night doesn't bother you a bit. Zoe picked up on the first ring. Hello? I didn't say anything. She knew it was me, though. Me and Zoe sort of have a psychic thing going sometimes. Phoebe? I nodded. You okay? She asked. I took a shaky breath. No. She came right over. We got blankets from my bedroom and covered up on the living room couch so my parents wouldn't hear us. But even before we could settle in, I had already started to tell her about it. It only took 10 minutes, I said. It was just a few prayers at the grave, and there were only 4 of us there, just my parents and me and the minister. And well, the urn was there too. It was box-shaped, except for it was made out of marble or granite or something. Small, though, like about the size of a shoebox, I'd say, which is why it wasn't as sad as a regular funeral, I think, because it was almost like he wasn't even there, like there wasn't a trace of him left hardly. Only see, that's what started to get to me. I mean, where is he, Zoe? Right now, right at this very minute. She looked a little confused. He's in heaven, Phoebe. We talked about all that this afternoon, remember? Yeah, but what does that even mean, heaven? Because, see, I need to be able to put him somewhere, Zoe. In my head, I mean. I need to be able to close my eyes and picture him and know he's okay. And just saying the word heaven doesn't help that much. Because, like, what is heaven? And where is it? And what do you do there? Zoe shrugged. I don't know. I guess I always just figured it was up. It was up. Like in the clouds or something. I stared at her curiously. That's what you actually think, so? You actually think that after you die, you float up in the clouds and do what there? Sprout a halo and play the harp? She frowned. Don't make fun of me, Phoebe. It doesn't. It's just that I've never thought much about heaven specifically, where heaven's specifically located, okay? And anyway, the important thing is that heaven is where God is. I rolled my eyes. Yes, but that still doesn't tell me anything, Zoe. I mean, what does it look like there? And what in the world do you do all day? Things didn't get better, Zoe said. Things things didn't get better, Zoe said. You do God stuff. My mouth practically dropped open with that one, God stuff. What the heck is God stuff? You mean like right now you think Mick is reading Bible stories and going around saying, peace be with you and junk? Because that's a little hard to believe, don't you think? Especially considering he got suspended from choir practice last year for tap dancing on the piano. Zoe flopped back on her pillow. Hey, I've got an idea. Why don't you just tell me what you want me to say? And I'll say it. That way you won't have to keep mocking me. We didn't talk for a while after that. I'm sorry, okay? I said finally. I didn't mean to make fun of you. It's just that everyone seems to have all these easy answers, only none of them make any sense to me. Like my Nana from Florida keeps saying, this is all part of God's plan for Mick, and we're not allowed to question the plan or think that maybe the plan stinks. We just have to accept it, period. The end. And my other grandparents and my other grandmother says that God must have needed Mick more than we did. Only what kind of selfish God is that? To just snatch somebody away from the people who love him? Not to mention the fact that it's a little hard to believe that the most powerful being in the entire universe needs a 7th grader who can't even program a VCR without screwing up the TV. Zoe frowned and thought. So maybe your grandmothers are wrong, she said. Maybe Mick's accident wasn't planned at all. Maybe it was a real honest to goodness accident, and God is just as sad about it as everyone else. I nodded. Yeah. Well, that's sort of what I've been thinking too. Only that would mean that God has no control over it. And if God has no control, then he can't be the all-powerful, can he? Unless, of course, he makes it a rule not to interfere in our lives or something. Or who knows? Maybe there isn't a God at all. Only I don't even want her to consider that option right now. The point is, there's no way to know any of that stuff for absolute positive sure. Just like there's no way to know what Mick's doing right now, or who he's with, or if he's lonely or scared. I stopped for a second. You don't think he's scared, do you, Zoe? Because I hate it when I think about that. But the idea keeps coming into my head, and I can't get it to stay away. Just then, my throat began to ache the way it does when you're trying not to cry. Or maybe he's not even out there at all. I mean, maybe he's just gone, period. I swallowed hard. Oh, God, Zoe. I want so bad to know he's okay. But I keep trying to picture him in my head, and I can't. Because I just don't know where to put him anymore. Zoe reached out her arms to me. And when she did, I caved in. Totally, sobbing out of control. She rubbed my back and waited for the worst of it to be over. And then, out of thin air, these magical words came out of her mouth. Put him everywhere. Why don't you? It stunned me when she said that. I don't know why exactly, but when I looked at Zoe's face, I could tell that she was almost as surprised as I was. She shrugged. It just sort of came out of me, she said. But it makes sense, don't you think, Phoebe? Because, if God is everywhere, the way they say he is, and Mick is with God, then Mick could be everywhere too. She raised her eyebrows. Couldn't he? For a second, I couldn't even answer. I was still just so amazed, and how right it felt. Then he could hear me, Zoe, I whispered, my stomach filled with butterflies. Slowly, I leaned back on the couch and tried to let it all sink in. At the other end, Zoe pulled the blankets up around her chin, and for a long time, neither of us said a word. I thought she had fallen asleep. I felt her tap me on the foot. Phoebe? Yeah, I could be wrong. He could just be up in the clouds tap dancing on God's piano. I hit her with a pillow. All right, we'll continue on our next video.